Andrew, it is so exciting to see you today. And I've really waited a long time to have this conversation because I find the things that you've done in your career fascinating. And I think if we begin with your international business experience, I know you're multilingual, Portuguese, Spanish, English. You've worked on several continents and done some really interesting work. Can you begin by talking a little bit about what you've done, where you've done it, and how it informs who you are today?
Business has always been part of my DNA from being inspired by entrepreneurs in my own family. So I studied to be in international trade and made it my goal and began doing some projects in Central America that led to me going down to Brazil for 90 days to work on a project that turned into a 10-year stint living there and getting my family, meeting my wife, my kids, and grew a business in Brazil, helping companies cross those borders. And then when I came back to the States to extend the business and the market crashed and became part of an actual company as an employee, which was odd for me because I'd been working on my own for so many years, taking that company from, they were in maybe 13 countries to 75 countries in 5 years. So, wow. I mean, who I am has so much to do with all of those experiences. I think to date, I don't really keep the math, but it's got to be at least 120 plus countries that I visited and worked in and otherwise over the years.
How did being an American in a foreign land, we Americans have cultivated the reputation for being, the ugly American. We bring all of our American mores and folkways with us into a new environment. And those people in those countries kind of resent are not embracing their culture. How do you deal with being an American and living in another land? And what have you learned from it?
It's an interesting question. I don't travel nor have the mindset of the guys that get stereotyped as that ugly American traveler, but I've met a lot of them along the way. And I've actually been in conversations where people didn't know I was an American as they were slamming some tourist that was just saying and doing very stupid things. I remember one day I was at the desk at a hotel checking in and an American guy came in. And this was in Brazil, and the hotel clerk said to me, "Do you speak English?" And I said, "Yeah, I can speak English." He goes, "So can you help me with this guest?" I said, "Sure." So I turned to the guest, an American guy, and he was asking questions. I swear to you, he asked, "What time of day will I have access to electricity in my room?" In a modern city in Brazil. And, you have to respond. So for me, I'm fascinated by the image that people have of the Americans who go abroad. And I'm always reminded that people remember the loudest and most obnoxious and ignore all of those others who they've met that didn't fit that stereotype. So but yeah, living abroad as an American, and, people made comments to me, "You lived overseas for all those years. What do you hate your country?" No, I love this country. I choose to live here now. I could live anywhere. But at the same time, there's a lot that we could do to educate people to understand how rich and how much you can learn from the differences that you find in other parts of the world.
What's interesting and what I find fascinating about your approach to being a citizen of the world is how you approach your dining experiences and the double-sided card that you travel with when you're in a particular country. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that really illustrates how highly nurtured your emotional intelligence is just innately. But talk about that a little bit.
Typically, when you're traveling in an Asian country like China or otherwise, where the language barrier is so strong, and my Mandarin, as much as I learned over the years, I was never fluent. But you get hungry and you want to explore, or I should say, I want to explore, because so many people are looking for the McDonald's when they're not with their hosts. But so what I would do is I would always travel with cards, and I would go to the front desk of the hotel, and on the front, I would write, for example, I would like something with chicken and vegetables, not too spicy or medium spicy. And then I would have the clerk at the hotel write it in Chinese on the back. And then I would ask them, I'd write in English on one side, "Please take me back to my hotel. This is the card." And then the people at the hotel would write on the back in Chinese, and I would keep the card to the hotel. So now what I would do is go out and walk and explore the streets. I would go, and I didn't care if it was in a direction that I couldn't get back. I'd go in different directions. I see something interesting and explore and get to know everything. because I knew I had the card and the hotel card. If I can find a cab, I can get back. It's fine. And if I got to a restaurant and I was hungry, I could order something unique that I would never have thought to order on my own because I wouldn't have known. So you trust and you learn from these incredible people that you meet along the way. And the level of service that you get when you're the odd man out in a place that typically doesn't see foreigners who had the foresight to bring those ideas to the table. This is the appetizer. This is the thing in some soup or whatever those cards were. You were treated like family in those restaurants. So the experience that you gain is so much more than, oh God, I miss hamburgers. I'm going to go find the one McDonald's within 7 miles of my hotel.
Yeah, I think that really is a case study for what it means to really be dialed into what we call emotional intelligence and leading with empathy. You didn't force the cabbie or the waiter in that Chinese restaurant to use whatever they knew about English to understand what you wanted. Egg foo young, which is an American dish, not a Chinese dish. And try to have that conversation. You led with empathy and said, I'm going to be as approachable and open and dynamic to the moment and trust, which is empathy. And I think when we take that and we pivot from just your travels in China and Brazil, and you being open and dynamic in those environments, if you translate that to being open and dynamic in every business encounter, then you engage more fully with the people that you might be in service to or need information from. And doing it that way, you get more information and you get further down the line, wherever you're trying to go.
You hear the buzzword, especially today, that everything is about, relationship selling. And I think 80% of the people who say it don't know what a relationship selling actually is. But it begins with meeting people at their model of the world and being comfortable with that. And then leading them towards what it is that you're trying to accomplish in that sale. But you can't have a relationship sale occur. You can't build in that realm if you're not willing to meet people where they are and understand who they are, rather than expect them to be you. It's just part of the game.